side playing blue, white, red Delver.
And of course, Michael Major's list very similar to the one that Owen Turnwald used to win Grand Prix Washington DC a little while ago. 4 Delver Secrets, 4 Stone Forge Mystic, 2 True Name Nemesis, the main deck creature base, alongside your usual litany of removal spells, soft counters, 3 main deck Cataxi Improves.
So Michael Majors is the lower seed, so he's going to elect to play first, leads with the Scalding Tarn, sacrifices that falling to 19 and searches out a Tundra. And it looks like he's going to have a turn 1 play here, as this deck often leads with a turn 1 play. And it is the namesake. It is going to be a Delver of Secrets. So good start here for Michael.
Now this is again a place where Dylan's build of Bug has some upside here. Access to Abrupt Decay, which doesn't matter if Michael tries to protect with Spell Pierce or Force of Will. It's just good to go.
Yeah, and Delver Mirror usually being on the play is huge because, again, both decks do have access to Wasteland, so being able to put a threat into play and then Wasteland your opponent, really huge tempo play. So Michael reveals a Cataxian Probe off the Delver trigger, and that flips into an Insectour Aberration, and now he's going to pay 2 to cast a Cataxian Probe and see what Dylan has in his hand.
So he's looking at Force of Will, Thoughtseize, Ponder, Tarmogoyf, and 2 lands. Pretty solid hand here for Dylan.
Yeah, solid hand for Dylan. He currently does not have a way to deal with the Insectour Operation, but like you said, he does have 4 copies of Abrupt Decay in his deck, and with that Ponder, he can easily search for something.
Yeah. And right now, I think Michael would really like to answer this Delver, this Deathrite Shaman, rather, if he can. It does not look like he has a second land right now. He may be stuck on simply a Tundra.
Yeah, it looks like he has a couple of Brainstorms in his hand to allow him to dig. Unfortunately, missing a second land drop is huge because it looks like he might actually have a Umezawa Jitte in his hand, which he could have deployed this turn. So he's going to elect to cast Brainstorm first. And let's see if he finds a second land. He does in a Wasteland. So
not ideal. I think what Michael would have really liked to find there is a red source of mana, so he could have lightning bolted this Deathrite Shaman. I think he would have also settled for another copy of Tundra to make a land drop and then Swords of Plowshares the Deathrite Shaman. The worst of all of these options is receiving a Wasteland. It does provide mana, but not a helpful color, and Michael has no way to shuffle his deck, so he's going to not be drawing lands for a couple turns here, and he's going to be stranded with some pretty expensive spells in his hand.
Well, the good news for Michael, though, again, he does have that Wasteland, so he could actually play at this turn, take out the Underground Sea. He knows what's in Dylan's hand, and then he still has access to white mana next turn if Dylan doesn't have a Wasteland, which he know he doesn't, and then he could try to actually Plowshare the Deathrite Shaman next turn. He also has that Force of Will that he drew off the Brainstorm, so if Dylan tries to lead with the Tarmogoyf, he can counter that.
Yeah, he definitely has some pieces, for sure, but I think of all the lands Michael would have wanted to draw this turn, Wasteland the lowest of the list.
Yeah, you want to continue to make your mana drops, and again, it's all about keeping it's a kind of mana denial, so being able to kill the Deathrite Shaman, obviously huge here. So let's see what Michael decides to do. He's going to play the Wasteland. Let's see if he activates it this turn. He does have that Jitte in his hand. It looks like he's just going to pass here.
And I think Michael is wisely not wanting to play a Wasteland game when he himself will be stuck on lands, and he's facing down an opposing Deathrite Shaman, which gives Dylan a mana advantage.
So Michael knows what's in Dylan's hand. He knew about the Thoughtseize, so it looks like he hid a Swords to Plowshare on top of his library. Dylan's going to activate Deathrite Shaman, removing the Scalding Tarn, tapping a Tropical Island, and he's going to lead with a Tarmogoyf here.
Yeah, he has a Thoughtseize left over in his hand, but I'm pretty sure he's way more concerned about getting the Tarmogoyf to resolve in this spot than the Thoughtseize.
Dylan in good shape here. He's got a Force of Will plus a blue card in Ponder to pitch to it, along with a Daze.
And this sort of reveals the mystery here. With Lightning Bolt in hand, if Michael had access to red mana, he almost certainly would have played a Volcanic Island and Lightning Bolted the Deathrite Shaman last turn. So Dylan can pretty safely assume that Michael does not have access to more mana, and if he does, it's probably additional copies of Wasteland.
Yeah, so he hid both, it looks like the second Brainstorm and the Swords of Plowshare on top of his library. So let's see what Dylan decides to take here. Again, redundant copies of Lightning Bolt. Umezawa Jitte obviously can prove pretty problematic for Dylan if it goes unchecked, so let's see if he decides to go after that. And no, he is going to take the True Name Nemesis.
And all other things being equal, I like erring on the side of taking True Name Nemesis. It's the most problematic card in Michael's deck for Dylan. It puts a creature in the graveyard, which helps the Tarmogoyf. And if he anticipates the game going on for a long time, particularly if Michael has removal spells of his own, the True Name Nemesis represents the biggest long-term threat.
So Michael draws the Swords to Plowshares. He can choose to cast that this turn. He knows about he doesn't know about the Daze, but he knows about the Force of Will. but he has a Force of Will of his own. So let's see what he decides to do this turn. Again, Dylan is at 12 life now.
Yeah, he has taken some lumps here. That Thoughtseize and these Delver hits.
Let's see if he wants to lead with Jitte. And look, it looks like he is going to lead with Jitte here. Dylan's going to respond with a Daze. And Michael, knowing that he still has Force of Will in his hand, decides he's not going to fight over that.
This also puts an artifact in the graveyard, growing the Tarmogoyf even further.
And Dylan draws the card that you were talking about, Abrupt Decay. So now he has an answer to the Insectile Aberration to go along with the Tarmogoyf and Delver Deathrite Shaman that's already in play.
Now, Abrupt Decay isn't great in 100% of scenarios in these kind of matchups. Of course, if Michael has a True Name Nemesis, it provides no defense, but this is one of the spots where Abrupt Decay is just an incredible insurance policy for Dylan. It's hard for the game to go too badly for him at this point, as nothing can really sneak through except for a True Name Nemesis, which he can pretty safely assume Michael does not have the mana for at this stage.
So let's see how Dylan wants to navigate this turn. He has a lot of options. He has Ponder that he can try to cast, or if he wants to hold on to that to make sure he can pitch it to Force of Will.
Yeah, I like starting the turn by sacrificing the Verdant Catacombs before combat, almost no matter what, because there's no land in the graveyard currently. Dylan would like to get this game over with as soon as possible, so grow the Tarmogoyf a little bit further.
Yeah, so he's going to sacrifice Verdant Catacombs to find the Bayou, and now he's going to cast Abrupt Decay, targeting the Delver Secrets. And that will die, and now we're going to have both creatures swinging over. Tarmogoyf is a 5-power creature, so Michael will take 6 and now drops to 11. And we know he had the Brainstorm on top of his library, so he's likely has the choice of trying to cast that here to try to find more land, or just use Plowshare on the Tarmogoyf right now.
Yeah, and the most conservative play here is just to cast Swords to Plowshare, but eventually Michael has to be concerned about finding red mana as well, because this Deathrite Shaman is about to get very threatening as well.
Yeah, Michael might feel he needs to gamble a little bit and try to dig for another land, just thinking that I'm too far behind as it is.
The problem is that if he brainstorms here, if he draws a fetch land as his only land, he almost certainly has to get another Tundra, because he has to plow the Tarmogoyf this turn. Mm-hmm. And he really needs Volcanic Island. So I like leading off with the Swords to Plowshare, as it allows you to then try to find Volcanic Island next turn, which is what he really needs to start getting his draw set up.
Yeah, so being a little patient here, Michael tries to Plowshare the Tarmogoyf. Dylan does use the Force of Will, pitching a Ponder. And now Michael's going to have to pitch that Brainstorm to force back. So it doesn't look like he has any cards left to manipulate his deck. He does have those 2 Lightning Bolts, but no red mana currently.
And Michael from here has some pretty big draws. A red source of mana gives him a Lightning Bolt, and then we're at parity. A Stoneforge Mystic, if it goes unchecked here, could swing this game around in a second.
So he looks like he drew a Spell Pierce for the turn. Fortunately, though, for him, Dylan just has 2 lands in his hand, so things not looking too terrible for Michael just yet. He still has plenty of outs.
Yeah, red mana soon and Stoneforge Mystic are the places he would like to start.
Dylan draws yet another land, so Michael still, despite the fact not having any red mana, still in a reasonable position here, but he really needs to draw red mana soon. It looks like he drew another Tundra, so he has 2 Lightning Bolts, a Tundra, and a Spell Pierce in his hand.
And he's running out of time here in the face of this Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, fortunately for him, it looks like Dylan keeps bricking on really good draws. He just keeps drawing land here, getting a little flooded. And did Michael draw a red source?
I believe it was another copy of Spell Pierce.
So another Spell Pierce, and now Michael's going to fall to 4 life. So Dylan's threatening lethal next turn.
And Dylan would really like to find something proactive. I mean, he's happy to draw a spell this turn in Thoughtseize, but I think he would much prefer any sort of creature.
Yeah, so Thoughtseize is going to reel, and one of the Lightning Bolts will get taken here. So Michael still has an out with a red source. He will be able to deal with the Deathrite Shaman, although he will be falling to 2 life. And Michael just draws a Daze, so wow. No red mana, no card manipulation to try to help him find that red mana, and it looks like Michael might actually fall to this Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, pretty crazy game, and this is not the first time that we've seen games in the elimination rounds or late in the Swiss decided by mana troubles out of one of these Delver lists or out of one of these Esper Deathblade lists.
Yeah, so it's pretty surprising turn of events. Dylan is just going to continue to try to press his advantage here, and then on his upkeep, on Michael's upkeep, he's going to activate Deathrite Shaman, and that is the game. So Michael Majors, despite the fact that he had plenty of outs there, he could have drawn any kind of red source. He could have stopped Dylan's Deathrite Shaman, and Dylan actually drew a lot of lands there. So if Michael did draw a red source, he'd be right back in it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to find a red source in time, and Dylan was able to take the first game.
Yeah, you can see even the look on Dylan's face as they're pulling away. This expression of, well, that was weird.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting the game to play out that way, but again, never found a volcanic island. Kept a, a greedy but keepable hand, but just didn't find a red source of mana in time or even at all, and fell to just a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, so unfortunate there for Dylan, although he is going to get 2 more chances, or at least 1 more chance to try to even this thing up. But for now, we're going to give you our SCG Premium Trivia question. And for those of you who are just joining us, basically what we do is in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals, we give you a chance to win 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months of Star City Games Premium for StarCityGames.com content. And basically what happens is we'll ask you a trivia question, and then you tweet us the answer at SCG Live with the hashtag SCG Premium. And again, speed doesn't matter. All it is accuracy. So take your time, tweet us the answer before the end of the round, and we will announce the winner.
All right, Dylan Donegan's bug list. Some counter spells, some removal spells, some creatures. He has 1 Planeswalker in his list, does a variety of functions, good in attrition-based matchups, good answer to True Name Nemesis along with other untargetable creatures. What is the name of that Planeswalker? Again, tweet the answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium, and one of you will be drawn for a half year of Star City Games Premium content.
And again, if any of you aren't friends with Dylan personally and don't know his deck list, you can cheat. You can go to StarCityGames.com and look up the deck list there. But for now, we're going to go back to the feature match, and we're going to go over the sideboards here. So for Game 2, how do you kind of see this game playing out, knowing what the sideboards are?
Well, Dylan has access to 2 copies of Golgari Charm, 2 Disfigures, a Vendilion Click, a Liliana the Veil, a Sylvan Library, 3 copies of Hidden Torak, 2 Spell Pierces, 2 Nile Spell Bombs, and a Submerge. I think he's going to want to bring in the Golgari Charms. The biggest thing that he needs to ensure himself against is getting killed by True Name Nemesis. So even though Golgari Charm isn't at his best here, doesn't kill every single creature in Michael Majors' deck, the fact that it is a good answer to True Name Nemesis, and in a pinch can be used to fizzle a Lightning Bolt or something along those lines, means I think it's certainly going to be coming in. I think he's going to want the additional copy of Liliana the Veil for similar reasons. The rest of it, I'm not sure if he really wants. Hidden Torak is pretty good in most normal matchups, but this is more of a tempo-based matchup. I think that Michael has to be the aggressor in the matchup because a lot of his defensive tools don't really work over the long term. And so I'm not sure if Dylan really wants to clog up his hand with a bunch of Hidden Toraks.
And what do you think he's going to take out? I mean, how do you like cards like Force of Will in this matchup?
I'm not a huge fan. But that said, again, the risk of True Name Nemesis sort of warps the way that Dylan has to approach the matchup. So he may want to keep in a couple copies of Force of Will as insurance, but I do think the counter spells are just not very well suited for the matchup. A lot of Michael's tools are interchangeable, so it's not like he's building up to one big thing. He has a lot of cantrips for redundancy and to find the pieces even if you are able to counter one of them. So I expect most of them to hit the bench. He may want to keep in a few as insurance or just to keep Michael honest in the case of things like Daze or Spell Pierce or what have you, but I think by and large he wants to remove the counter spells from the deck.
And on Michael's side, Blue, White, Red Delver, what do you see him changing?
Well, he has a Wear Tear, a Swords to Plowshare, 2 Red Elemental Blast, 2 Flusterstorms, 2 Rest in Peace, 4 copies of Meddling Mage, 2 copies of Grim Lavamancer, and a copy of Sword of Feast and Famine. I think he's going to want the copies of Rest in Peace potentially as a good answer to both Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman, 2 of Dylan's most effective creatures in the matchup. The additional copy of Swords to Plowshare, of course, Dylan playing with a bunch of creatures, so it makes a lot of sense to bring that in. I actually think he's going to want the Meddling Mages and the Grim Lavamancer and the Sword of Feast and Famine. In these matchups, both players are bringing in more removal spells, and the game becomes about either getting your thing to stick or outlasting your opponent. So in that world, you just want access to more creatures and more pieces of equipment to go find with your Stoneforge Mystic because the game's going to take a really long time. Grim Lavamancer is also pretty good against Dylan's creature base if it goes unchecked. I mean, he has Delver of Secrets, Dark Confidant, and Deathrite Shaman. So on top of just kind of wanting more creatures in general, Grim Lavamancer matches up pretty well with against what Dylan's doing. Meddling Mage can also be used to block out Abrupt Decay, which then opens up an avenue for Stoneforge Mystic to be a big factor. It can also name Liliana the Veil in certain spots, which opens up the door for True Name Nemesis to be a big factor. So the fact that there's enough differences in the two decks means that he doesn't have to Meddling Mage cards that are in his own deck. And again, I think he's just in the market for more creatures.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Meddling Mage naming Abrupt Decay, even though it is answerable with a card like Disfigure, can be kind of annoying and problematic for Dylan. Again, there's only really 2 copies of Disfigure, so short of like a Liliana the Veil, there's really not that many ways that he could potentially interact with the Meddling Mage. So very interesting options there for Michael. And again, being on the play also really huge because, again, he can lead with the Delver, which is good, but he could also lead with the Grim Lavamancer. So like you said, Grim Lavamancer can take out some key threats like Deathrite Shaman or the other Delver Secrets.
He just has to wear Dylan out. That's the critical thing here. It can open up a door for True Name Nemesis to be able to exhaust some of his removal spells or exhaust Liliana the Veil. Also keep in mind that there is the possibility of this game going very long as both players are flush removal. And then hard casting Batterskull is another thing that can come up in these games. Even though it's unlikely to happen in the first game, the post-board games in these matchups get a lot slower. Players just with access to much more removal and can cut some of the more inefficient counterspells.
Yeah, I love, like you mentioned, the Rest in Peace. That card seems really, really good against a Bug Delver deck. Obviously, it's effective against Rug Delver because it shuts off Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose, but shutting off Tarmogoyf and Deathrite Shaman just as important. So I definitely like the idea of Rest in Peace coming in after board as well.
Yeah, Rest in Peace is an interesting card in Legacy because when it first got previewed, I think a lot of people just said, okay, well, this is another awesome sideboard card to hate on decks like Dredge and Reanimator and so forth. And it's pretty good at that role. But it's actually, in my mind, even better at shutting down the honest graveyard decks, by which I mean decks like Rug Delver, Bug Delver, just Deathrite Shaman, Tarmogoyf Threshold decks.
Yep. So a little update for you on other backup match. Philip Braverman is actually up a game versus Dustin Biggers in that Blue-White Miracles matchup. So that's kind of what you kind of expected prior to the match. You figured, you know, it's basically a mirror match, but Philip Braverman, pretty experienced with the deck, and he actually just played a mirror match the round before, so maybe he has a little more experience on his side.
Yeah, I was just so impressed by the way that Philip handled his quarterfinal match in essentially the same matchup. And again, he's picking up Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast in the post-board games, whereas Dustin Biggers is not. So I think he has a pretty significant edge when you factor in the experience and the red splash being so good in the mirror.
Yeah, so winning game 1 and getting to play games 2 and potentially 3 with Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast, obviously a huge advantage for Philip. So we'll continue to give you updates on that match. But for now, we're going to tune in back to the Michael Majors-Dylan Donegan match. Michael Majors is down a game, so he will be on the play for this game. And both players are deciding if they want to keep their opening 7 cards. Looks like Michael is debating whether or not he wants to keep it, and looks like he is. So we're going to lead things off here with a Misty Rainforest getting sacrificed. Let's see if he wants to get a Tundra or a Volcanic, and he's going to get a Tundra. So Michael Majors, a lot of turn 1 plays. Obviously, ideally, he'd probably want to get a Delver of Secrets, but he also has Ponder as a potential casting, and that's exactly what he's going to cast here.
And I actually like leading off with the cantrips a little bit more in the post-board games, as Dylan is going to be flush removal. Game 1, he doesn't have a lot of ways to kill a Delver of Secrets when he's on the draw, but in the post-board games, he picks up this figure. And so setting up your draw is arguably a little bit better than even leading with a threat.
So Michael Majors actually doesn't like the 3 cards on top of his library, so he's just going to shuffle them away, and he's going to get a random draw here. I think one of those cards was a Batterskull, and he actually does have a Stoneforge Mystic in his hand, so could be a potentially good turn 2 if Dylan doesn't have a Thoughtseize. And he draws a Volcanic Island off the random draw, so passes it to Dylan here, and let's see what Dylan has for turn 1.
And Michael's, unlike last game, stock with mana, has the Volcanic Island in hand to go along with his Tundra.
Dylan looks like he has a Delver of Secrets in his hand, along with several lands, 2 of which appear to be wastelands. So that could be pretty good for him, depending on how mana light Michael is.
It's a risky play. The turn 1 wasteland on the draw,
especially after they ponder.
Yeah, this is more made or break numerous legacy matches.
Yeah. Unfortunately, however, since he has a Delver of Secrets in his hand, I actually wouldn't mind him just leading with a Delver here, but he is going to lead with the Wasteland.
There's such a reason. If Michael went Delver, keep my 3, I think there's no chance Dylan Wastelands there. But the odds are so high that Michael kept a hand that was 1 land and Ponder looking for a land, didn't find a land in the top 3, and now is shuffling and searching. You see that all the time. And so the upside is really huge there, of course, if Michael doesn't have any mana to work with. So I don't mind the Wasteland there out of Dylan, and I suspect he would not have done that had Michael kept his initial 3 off the ponder.
Well, it paid off for him because he actually activated Wasteland on Michael's upkeep. Michael responded with the Brainstorm, but he did not find a colored mana. He did find the Ponder. Unfortunately, all he found was Wasteland, so he is going to be a little color screwed, similar to the first game.
Yeah. And this is rough because Michael's hand looked excellent. I mean, he had Stoneforge Mystic ready to go. All the pieces you could really ask for, but he might be stuck again, just unable to cast his spells.
Yeah, and that Brainstorm was cast on his upkeep, and so he put 2 Stoneforge Mystics on top of his library. So now his next 2 draw steps are not going to be colored mana.
Yeah.
So Dylan plays Underground Sea and a Polluted Delta, searching for Underground Sea and Delver Secrets, and that will get Wastelanded from Michael. So Delver does not reveal an instant or sorcery, so it's going to stay a 1/1. However, Dylan does have a couple of more lands in play. Looks like or in hand rather. It looks like he has a Verdant Catacombs and a Brainstorm as well. So he's going to play a Misty Rainforest. And Michael finally draws a red source in Volcanic Island.
And this is another dimension to these Delver Mirror matches. I mean, they're 18 land decks, they're 3 colors, and they're all playing 4 copies of Wasteland. So often the game goes like this, where one player is just cut off entirely from mana.
Dylan does not reveal an instant or sorcery again for Delver, so it remains a 1/1. I believe he drew a Delver of Secrets, a second copy here. So let's see what Dylan wants to do here. He's going to swing first, dropping Michael to 17. He does have a Sylvan Library in his hand along with a Verdant Catacombs. So let's see if he wants to try to cast a Sylvan Library here.
Yeah, I mean, he has another Delver in hand plus some cantrips, so he can try to set that up, or he can just take this as an opportunity to land Sylvan Library.
Mm-hmm. So in response to Dylan sacrificing Mr. Rainforest, Michael is going to cast Lightning Bolt targeting the Delver Secrets. Let's see if Dylan has a response to that, or will it resolve?
Yeah, he separated 2 cards out of his hand. I don't actually know if he has Force of Will. It appears that he actually has. One of the cards he's living right now is a Disfigure. So
yeah,
I
that's
think
a
he's
bluff.
just posturing here.
A little posturing. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So now Michael might think that Dylan has a Force of Will when we at home know that Dylan, in fact, does not.
And again, with the post-board games becoming a lot slower and grindier, more removal-oriented, I like the idea of just getting Sylvan Library into play, assuming that he doesn't need to cantrip this turn to find a land drop or something along those lines. If he can comfortably afford to deploy Sylvan Library, I think this is a pretty good opportunity.
Yeah, I could see if you think that maybe Michael's behind and you want to kind of press your advantage, but you're really not that far ahead of him. I mean, you have basically 2 lands or 1 land in play. You can play a second land, but Michael's at 17, and he just found a red source, so you don't really know what you're dealing with here. So I'm with you. I think you kind of feel like this might be a grindy matchup. Maybe you just want to get Sylvan Library in play. Maybe you want to try to find a Liliana the Veil. But it looks like Dylan is going to lead with a Brainstorm here, and he potentially might be setting up a Delver of Secrets.
Well, I believe the only lands he has left over in his hand is a fetch land at this point, so it's not even for certain that he can set up the Delver through this line.
Yeah, that's true. So if he actually if he doesn't draw a regular dual land here, he will have to play a sack land, and then he won't be able to set his library. So Delver might not even flip. However, he did draw a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, and Deathrite's really good here. You know, in the face of Michael's having another Wasteland and Dylan being out of mana potentially, casting the Delver here is fraught with some peril, but getting the Deathrite Shaman plays a pretty good insurance policy in case Michael decides to Wasteland one of Dylan's remaining lands.
Yeah, so Dylan is going to play the Verdant Catacomb and sacrifice it immediately. Let's see what he finds here. He's going to get a Tropical Island. And again, he has Deathrite Shaman, he has Delver of Secrets. What do you think he's going to cast here?
I like casting Deathrite this turn, I think. Okay. Mana is a bit of a bottleneck, although he may correctly suspect that Michael just has a lot of removal in hand and is trying to trade out and open up a pathway for Deathrite to go into play uncontested.
Okay, so Dylan does play the Delver of Secrets, and Michael draws a 3rd land here, so he draws a Arid Mesa, and he's going to lead with a Ponder.
Arid Mesa, a really important draw here. Gives him access to, obviously, the Stoneforge Mystic in his hand, and he's found a Gitaxian Probe here. And I'm interested to see if Michael is really interested in this Gitaxian Probe, just because the information on Dylan's hand is so significant right now. How good is the Stoneforge Mystic? Is the coast clear for True Name Nemesis? There's a lot of information to be gleaned right now. And even though Gitaxian Probe, you look at it and it's just replacing itself and it costs Michael's 2 life, the information could be at a real premium in this moment.
Yeah, should I use my Wasteland right now? Can I potentially mana screw Dylan? Yeah, I agree with you. The information is just so useful. And it looks like he's going to play the Arid Mesa first to shuffle away some of those cards. I think there were maybe multiple copies of Spell Pierce on top of his library. He doesn't really want those right now.
Yeah, Spell Pierce is a good tool for Michael for fighting Liliana the Veil. So
Yeah.
I like the soft counters a little more in Michael's deck than I like in Dylan's.
So Michael's going to sacrifice the Arid Mesa to find the Tundra, and now he'll lead with a Gitaxian Probe. And Dylan reveals a hand of Disfigure, Deathrite Shaman, Thoughtseize, Ponder, and a Sylvan Library.
So as his hand is currently constructed, I mean, Dylan may choose to Thoughtseize Michael next turn, but that True Name Nemesis could have an opening here. What's very likely to happen is if Michael plays a Stoneforge Mystic, Dylan will spend his black mana the next turn disfiguring the Stoneforge Mystic, and then I can really open up for True Name.
Well, I think it's great because the Gitaxian Probe basically showed Michael that casting Stoneforge Mystic here really isn't great, because if I get an equipment, Dylan can just Thoughtseize it away.
Sure. It depends what he's trying to create an opening for, but he does have to choose next turn between casting Thoughtseize or Disfigure at least.
Oh, or he could just, or Michael might just Wasteland the Black Source and then
try to
have
go-
that play.
And then next turn try to go for it?
Yeah, because he has a Source of Plowshare in his hand as well. So if Dylan tries to play the Deathrite, he can just plow it and then untap and then try to get something going with the Stoneforge. But looks like he's just going to lead with Stoneforge Mystic here. And again, he's aware that Dylan has both Thoughtseize and a Disfigure, so it's unlikely that Umezawa Jete will actually see play, but let's see what he... Oh, wow, perfect draw there. Dylan draws a Misty Rainforest, so now he has access to double black, so he can actually cast Thoughtseize, Disfigure if he chooses, and Deathrite Shaman all in the same turn.
Yeah, or Ponder as if he wants to go down that road instead.
Yeah, the only fear with not killing the Stoneforge Mystic is if Michael happens to draw a Batterskull. He'll be able to activate Stoneforge Mystic. But again, I think it's fair to say that there's only one card in his deck that he's really afraid of.
Yeah, you can't really fight it. Of course, the Umezawa Jete can just be cast regardless, so we're looking at basically just Batterskull as the big threats here in the event that he just decides to leave Stoneforge Mystic in play.
So Thoughtseize reveals the hand, and you have to imagine he's probably going to go after Jete here. Again, redundant copies of Stoneforge, maybe Swords to Plowshare. Delver's Secrets doesn't really seem like an ideal target either, but we'll see what Dylan decides to do here.
I think there's an argument to take Swords to Plowshares out of this hand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dylan does have a Delver of Secrets and a Deathrite Shaman, both of which can provide a lot of value, assuming that he can really prevent Michael from ever getting an equipment onto his creature.
Yeah, my only concern there would be the fact that Michael does have several creatures in his hand, so Jete is likely going to get equipped to something if you don't draw an Abrupt Decay.
It's hard for Dylan to fight that fight.
So yeah, Dylan does take the Umezawa Jete, leaving Michael with double Stoneforge Mystic and Delver Secrets and Swords to Plowshare.
You can see that these games in the post-board scenario just go a lot longer. Players flush with more removal and more answers.
Yep.
That increases the value of Michael's Batterskull in the long term as well, as the game can get to a point where it's just being cast.
So Dylan is going to cast, looks like he taps the Bayou, so it's going to be Disfigure, Deathrite, and it will be Disfigure targeting the Stoneforge, and here we see Deathrite Shaman. And Delver of Secrets has not flipped for a while, so we know Misty Rainforest was the draw this turn, so Delver of Secrets remains a 1-1, so Michael Majors is now at 13.
And keep in mind, Michael's is a little bottlenecked on white mana right now. He has Swords of Plowshares and multiple copies of Stoneforge Mystic in hand. If Dylan's able to reveal a removal spell to this Delver of Secrets, for all next turn, for all the power in Michael's hand, he might just get out-tempoed out of this game.
Yeah, so Stoneforge Mystic will get cast here, and now we're going to see a Batterskull. And Dylan really doesn't have a way to interact with Stoneforge Mystic or Batterskull right now, so that Ponder is going to be really important.
Yeah.
He needs to find an Abrupt Decay or another Thoughtseize. Or Batterskull is likely to put Michael right back into things. So Delver of Secrets gets cast afterwards, and we're going to see what the flip and Golgari Charm gets revealed here. So Golgari Charm flips Delver into an Insectile Aberration, and let's see what Dylan decides to do with his turn. Again, I still think Ponder is probably going to be the card that gets cast first.
Yeah, I think he has to try to either kill the Stoneforge Mystic or find a discard spell right now.
Yeah. Don't want to let a Batterskull enter play. And wow, great ponder there. Not only does he get a Wasteland to potentially take out Michael's one white source of mana, but he also draws a Thoughtseize to take out the Batterskull. So really good draw there for Dylan.
Yeah, this is huge.
So Dylan could actually cast Thoughtseize and cast the Sylvan Library this turn and attack Michael down to 10.
Yeah.
So a pretty awesome ponder there for Dylan.
The thing is, there's such high upside here in just saying I'm taking Wasteland and Wastelanding the Tundra. I know it's super greedy, but it is. There is a lot of upside. If Michael doesn't find white mana next turn, he might be just pushed out of the game.
Yeah, the only issue is that, Michael has stalled on land for a while, so he didn't draw that. There's still plenty of lands left in his deck. Plus, even a Brainstorm or a Ponder drawn there could still get him right back into it. So I agree with you. It is definitely the riskier play, but there's higher reward as well.
Yeah.
So let's see what Dylan decides to do. He did draw the Thoughtseize, so Thoughtseize will get cast here.
I respect taking this line, but it would have been hard for me to turn down just trying to push Michael out of the game right now.
Yeah, it is a bolder line. I will give you that. So Michael loses his Batterskull to the Thoughtseize, and then Michael just has a Stoneforge, Swords to Plowshare, and a Delver Secrets in his hand. Insecta Aberration for Dylan, still free to attack here. And exactly what will happen, Michael's going to fall to 10 now. And let's see what Dylan wants to do here. He's got a Golgari Charm and Sylvan Library in his hand.
I mean, Dylan's fairly low on life here. I think there's an argument to just using Golgari Charm to take out the Delver Seekers. He's going to play Sylvan Library instead, but there is a bit of a risk here if Michael flips a spell.
Yeah, so Michael reveals Daze, and your Wasteland play would have been fine.
It would have been really good. It would have been really good right there.
Really good. So
he would have died with Swords of Plowshares and Batterskull in his hand.
So Michael reveals a Daze, and Delver Secrets flips into an Insecta Aberration. And like you said, Dylan is at 12, I believe, now. We had a slight adjustment to his life total.
Yeah, and the reason that I think that I would have gone with Golgari Charm last turn is that if that Delver flips into Insecta Aberration, you're likely losing the race. It's also going to be very challenging to use that Golgari Charm profitably down the road. Whereas you can Golgari Charm that turn, and then next turn still cast your Sylvan Library, and Sylvan Library is fine. You have a lot of life to play with, and the game's going to go on for a long time. Michael's turn, the following turn is probably just going to be Swords of Plowshares on one of your creatures.
Well, I think because of the Deathrite Shaman, I think Dylan still wins this race. He's basically got Michael on a 2-turn clock. Oh, but there's the Plowshare, so Plowshare is going to take out the Delver Secrets.
Yeah, Dylan was aware of the plow, so Michael
right.
has this really explosive turn right now.
So we're going to see Daze, Brainstorm, and Ponder off the Sylvan Library. And yeah, you're right. He doesn't really have a way to answer the Insecta Aberration currently.
I think he's still doing fine in the race. I mean, again, there's the upside of if the Delver doesn't flip that turn, then you still have Golgari Charm. You get to you're one turn ahead on using Sylvan Library. If Michael happens to draw another 1 toughness creature, it's insane for you. But that's a spot where I think I would have been a little bit more conservative and just get the Delver Secrets off the table when you had an opportunity.
Well, he probably has to get a Ponder here to try to draw something. But the other thing he has to think about is casting Golgari Charm on Michael's upkeep to kill the Delver Secrets and then shrink Michael's entire army.
Yeah.
If he wants to try, if he's thinking about racing here. So he's going to lead with Ponder. He knows 2 of the cards. Let's see what the 3rd card is. It is a Brainstorm. So not sure what he wants to do here. Does he just want a free shuffle? I kind of like getting a free shuffle given the fact that you have a Sylvan Library in play, and that is exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Dylan's behind the gun at this point enough that he doesn't really have enough time to be casting Brainstorms and Ponder. He needs to be using his mana on other stuff.
So it looks like he has a Delver. He drew a Deathrite Shaman, and he looks like he might cast a main phase Golgari Charm, maybe afraid of Spell Pierce. And that is exactly what's going to do. Let's see what he does here.
Yeah. This is a really tough play. I mean, there's a lot of upside, as you mentioned before, in doing Michael's turn, because not only do you kill the Delver Secrets, but you also save yourself 2 points of damage by shrinking the Insectile Aberration and the Stoneforge Mystic. But if Michael has Spell Pierce there, then the game's just about over.
And I think Spell Pierce is a card that you would have to concern yourself with. You saw it in Game 2 here earlier on between the Thoughtseize battles. So definitely a concern for him. He also knows about the days, so he has to be a little conservative here. He can't play the Deathrite Shaman, which he doesn't. So he's going to pass, and then on Michael's upkeep, he's going to cast the Golgari Charm before the Delver trigger resolves. And it looks like Golgari Charm will resolve. Delver Secrets will die, but none of the other creatures in Michael's that Michael has in play will die. And Michael had a great draw there.
Yep.
That would have been great in play before, but unfortunately, Dylan had to use that Golgari Charm right just then. And True Name Nemesis now resolves for Michael.
And Michael, of course, with a lot of Liliana of the Veil protection in play right now. And Dylan really needs to find his last copy of Golgari Charm. This may be another spot where Dylan just has to take Ponder with the intent of shuffling and hoping to find his Golgari Charm.
Yeah, he does. I think he has the last card in his hand currently is Deathrite Shaman. So that's not really helping out that much. He does have an active Deathrite Shaman, so he's not going to be dead next turn. Let's see what he decides to do here. Yeah, it looks like it might be a Ponder Shuffle hand again.
I mean, Tarmogoyf and Delver of Secrets are certainly providing no help right now.
You really need an answer to that True Name Nemesis. He already used one of his Golgari Charms, and like you said, there's plenty of Liliana protection on Michael's side of the board. So it looks like Dylan drew a Delver of Secrets.
It's possible that Dylan is still trying to race here. Maybe he feels like with his Deathrite Shaman gaining 2 life a turn and eventually switching gears and draining that he might be able to kill Michael before Michael's able to kill him with his forces. It's a really greedy line, but it might be higher percentage chance than trying to find the one remaining Golgari Charm.
Yep, and he set up the Ponder. He set up the Sylvan so that there's a Ponder on top of his library, so the Delver will flip next turn. So Michael is going to attack with both creatures, and before damage resolves, he's going to Dylan's going to activate Deathrite Shaman to gain 2 to get himself out of Lightning Bolt range. So he's going to go to 11, then take 6, falling to 5.
This is not an unreasonable path here.
Michael has, he's going to use his Wasteland. He drew a Stoneforge Mystic for the turn, I believe. Looks like he's going to use his Wasteland here, targeting the Bayou.
I like getting rid of the Bayou here as Dylan is on a Deathrite Shaman plan. He needs to both gain life and deal damage, so you want to take away his green-black duel as the most flexible and versatile one with 2 Deathrite Shamans in play.
So Dylan here, still in reasonable shape despite everything. Now we're going to see a second Stoneforge Mystic here. The Ponder does get revealed, and now we're going to scry. We're going to use the Sylvan Library. Tarmogoyf is in play. We see Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize, Ponder. So let's see here. We have double activation with Deathrite Shaman, 1 to drain, 1 to gain. You can bring Dylan up to 7. He'll take 6 in the air, and then one of the Stoneforges, the Stoneforges could get blocked by the Deathrite, so I think you're okay.
And if Dylan goes ahead and ponders here, I think you may see Michael daze it.
I don't think he can ponder. I think he actually just has to attack with Delver Secrets and hope that Michael doesn't draw anything, because I think he still wins the race, correct? If he just attacks, drops Michael to 7, and then he has 2 Deathrites to block the 2 Stoneforges, so he'll only take 6. He can gain and then drain Michael. But Michael draws a Swords to Plowshare. Wow, so great draw there from Michael. Exactly what he needed, because Dylan was winning this race despite everything.
Well, the issue is that, Michael could have gone ahead and left Insectile Aberration back on defense if it looked like attacking for short or lethal would have caused him to die on the way back. But still really good sequencing by Dylan here, give himself the best shot.
So, yep, Dylan's going to activate Deathrite Shaman to gain 2 life. He's at 5, and now he's going to drain Michael for 2. Looks like...
Yeah, they're just confirming what spell it's going to be. It doesn't really matter at this stage very much. And now Michael, it looks like he's debating what he wants to do with this plow.
Yeah, he could actually try to go after one of the Deathrite Shamans, I suppose, but... yeah, he's going to go to 5. And so Plow is a good draw here, but let's see if the math still is okay for Dylan. He's going to Sylvan Library. He knows a Tarmogoyf, a Thoughtseize, and there's that Brainstorm. So Dylan's currently at 1 life. So Michael can't take a hit from a Delver of Secrets here. He's going to have to Plow it. Otherwise, he's dead to Deathrite Shaman. He could potentially plow his own Stoneforge Mystic, though.
Yep. I mean, that's really greedy because if Dylan's found another black source of mana.
Yeah, like an Abrupt Decay, yeah. Or, yeah, another black source would do it, too. So let's see what Dylan decides to do here.
Yeah, that's pretty compelling game of chicken here being played.
Wow, so he did make the play where I'm gonna Swords to Plowshare my own creature. And that wastelanding that Bayou was critical here.
Yep. Otherwise, Dylan would have had a lot more flexibility in how he navigated this.
And now Michael's thinking, uh-oh, did I actually expose myself to an Abrupt Decay? I could always Swords to Plowshare my true name Nemesis. That might actually be, no. So let's see, what is Michael thinking about here? I think, I'm with you. I think he might be afraid that maybe he exposed himself a little bit to Abrupt Decay. The safe line was probably just taking out that Delver's Secrets, although, of course, you bring up Dylan to 3, but still, you're probably going to win the race. So let's see what Michael's debating about here. He does have to plow. He's going to have to plow something. The question is he thinking about maybe going after the True Name Nemesis so it can't get Abrupt Decayed in response?
Yeah. There's a lot riding on this decision right now.
Yeah, he's currently at 2, and Dylan has an active Deathrite Shaman activation. He removed the Thoughtseize, targeting Michael. So if the Deathrite Shaman activation resolves, Michael will die. Michael needs to gain life somehow. He does have a Swords to Plowshare, so Swords to Plowshare will gain life equal to target creature's toughness. But Michael has to be concerned if he targets like one of the Stoneforge Mystics, and Dylan does have an Abrupt Decay. So wow, he does go after the True Name Nemesis.
Shows quite a bit of respect here.
So he's going to go to 3, and this works out for him because again, Deathrite Shaman is only going to be able to gain 2 life here. Dylan might needed to have Brainstorm in response, but it might not have mattered. He might not have anything in his deck anyway. So Dylan Donegan, a really close game there. Michael Majors was able to come from behind thanks to a timely Swords to Plowshares that was drawn in the last possible turn. So Michael Majors even things up here at 1-1.
And I really like that play there from Michael targeting the True Name Nemesis, the more that I'm thinking about it now, because in the event that Dylan has Abrupt Decay in his hand, you lose the game if you target something else. If Dylan doesn't have Abrupt Decay, you still win with the Insectile Apparition. So there's a lot of safety in going down that road. He goes up to 5, then down to 3 from the Deathrite Shaman. Dylan still doesn't have double black in play, so he can't kill him the following turn necessarily. So he has some more shots and more draws at finding something else to win the game.
Yeah, I agree. Because Dylan was at 1, he pretty much guaranteed he's going to win regardless of the outcome. He just needed to make sure that he was able to gain life there.
So an unorthodox play. I don't know if I've ever actually seen that in Legacy play thus far.
Well, True Name Nemesis has a lot of benefits.
Oh, yeah. 3 power for 3 mana, still a pretty good deal all told, you know? That alongside the Swords to Plowshare is a healing solve when the situation calls for it.
So Michael Majors, really impressive victory. It was very swingy. Like things kept going back and forth in that matchup.
Well, a lot of it has to do with Wasteland. I mean, both players are spending some amount of the game being incapacitated or inefficient at least, and that can lead to some pretty big swings. Right when it looks like Michaels has a great opening hand set up, you know, he's going to cantrip on turn 1, Stoneforge on turn 2, you know, so a Wasteland in play, you know, in his hand, ready to go to leverage on Dylan's resources once Michael has it set up. Back-to-back Wastelands from Dylan there, and the game looks entirely different.
Yeah. And, you know, Dylan, multiple Wastelands, he was able to really put pressure on Michael's mana, just was never able to capitalize enough.
Yeah.
And Michael was able to deal with some of the early onslaught that Dylan had. And, but it was so close, though. Came down to 1 life point.
Yeah, that was one of the closest, if not the closest games of the tournament.
Yeah, whenever you win when you're at 1 life, you know you must have done something right.
Or a lot of things wrong.
Or a lot of things wrong, yeah.
It's one of the two.
So both players, looks like they didn't really change up their sideboard strategy. Obviously, these 2 decks are kind of pillars of the format. They probably are aware of this matchup. They kind of either tested it or played it many times before throughout the course of a tournament. so they are comfortable with how they sideboarded.
I'm interested to see if Michael has actually gone to the third piece of equipment in his deck. A, because Sword of Feast of Famine can be reasonably powerful just in a lot of spots randomly, and also because Dylan's shown that he's leaving his copies of Thoughtseize. So Dylan's showing a lot of respect for Stoneforge Mystic. Part of his plan is to just attack Dylan's hand and remove the piece of equipment. We saw that come up in the second game. And with how long these games go on, maybe there's some value in having a third piece of equipment.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We didn't really see too many sideboard cards out of Michael. We saw basically Swords to Plowshare. Again, he has a fourth that he could have boarded in, but beyond that, it was basically the same deck that there was game one.
And I'm thinking now also, Michael may not have brought in Grim Mancer because he already knows Golgari Charm is coming in on Dylan's side.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't want to just expose himself too much to getting Wrath everything. So both players are presenting their decks to their opponents, and we're going to be close here to Mulligan's decisions. But again, Dylan is on the play now. Being on the play is really huge for Delver because, again, being able to lead with either a Deathrite Shaman and possibly ramp into Liliana on turn 2, or play a threat like Delver turn 1 and then follow that up with a Wasteland, really important for Dylan.
Yeah, it's important all the time. It's especially important when the Bug Delver has the option of doing it, because a turn 1 Deathrite Shaman, if it isn't killed right away, you can leverage your resources in so many ways, ramping into a 3-drop or casting Tarmogoyf and Wastelanding.
So a little update on the backup match. Philip Braverman defeats Dustin Biggers 2-0. So kind of what we expected. Philip just played this matchup earlier, so we had a lot of experience with it. And then after board, we thought the red Elemental Blast and the Pyro Blast would definitely help out, and looks like it did. So Philip Braverman moves on to the finals.
What I would not have guessed is that match would have finished before our Delver Mirror match.
Yeah,
that has thrown me for a loop.
That is shocking that the Miracle match, the Miracle Mirror match, took only 45 minutes.
That's insane.
Very impressive. Both players activating tops? I don't know.
Someone must have mulliganed to 0.
Yeah.
no other real explanation for that.
Somebody might have just said, forget it, I'm going home.
Yeah, I'm
not going to bother.
Yeah.
So Michael Majors is comfortable with his 7-card hand. Unfortunately, Dylan is going to mulligan to 6 here.
But Delver decks are pretty robust at mulliganing. This is one of their biggest charms in the format. It doesn't take a lot of resources for them to get going and can do some very powerful stuff, even on very few resources.
Yeah, they can function pretty effectively on 1 or 2 lands, and the fact that they have both Ponder and Brainstorm in their deck also really helps smooth out their draws. So Dylan here is going to check if his 6-card hand is okay.
Now, the issue is when you mulligan, you're way more likely to get wastelanded out of the game. And now Dylan going to 5 cards.
Wow, so pretty unfortunate here for Dylan. Michael's still on 7, and Dylan now forced to mulligan to 5.
What an impressive run for Michael Majors. I mean, he's been posting some great results lately with this blue-white-red Delver deck.
Yeah, I'd say the 3 players remaining in this top 4, all of them have had a lot of experience with their respective decks, which is kind of a trend you see in Legacy. It's like most of the players play the same deck over and over and over again, and that really gives them such a huge edge, because the less mistakes you're likely to make, the better you're going to do, particularly in a format with Legacy where it's so punishing.
The games are so hard to play. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. There's so many small interactions, so many subtleties with brainstorm and manipulation and the way that you want to chain your spells together with certain decks and all of that, that I firmly believe in Legacy that you're better off playing the deck that you know best than the deck that you think happens to be best for the tournament. In Standard, sometimes I think it's the other way around. A certain deck is so good and the card pool is small enough that the games lack the kind of nuance that occurs in Legacy that just kind of play the best thing a lot of the time.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. So it looks like Dylan is okay with his 5-card hand, and he's going to play Underground Sea into a Delver of Secrets, and that will resolve. So Michael draws a card for a turn. It looks like it's a Swords to Plowshare, and he's going to lead with a Gataxian Probe. Dylan reveals a hand of Tarmogoyf, Brainstorm, and Misty Rainforest. So not the worst mulligan.
Yeah, for a 5-card hand, this will play, it is very susceptible to Michael just having a couple removal spells, and of course Stoneforge Mystic is unchecked the way that Dylan's hand is currently constructed, but a competitive 5-card hand.
Michael draws off of the Gataxian Probe, and he drew a Wasteland, so he can put some serious pressure on Dylan's resources.
And he has 2 Wastelands in his hand too. I think Michaels may want to just get busy here.
Yeah, given the fact that Dylan has a Brainstorm, he does have a Brainstorm and Misty Rainforest, so Wasteland not necessarily going to lock things up for Michael, but he will put a lot of pressure on his resources.
Although he also has Swords to Plowshares and Daze in his hand, which is also a very powerful opening against Dylan's opening hand here. So he has two really awesome paths he can go down.
Along with the Daze, so I think given the fact that he has Dylan has Brainstorm and another land, I kind of like just playing a land and maybe casting Delver, but instead he's just going to play Scalding Tarn and pass back, and it looks like Dylan revealed a Ponder to flip Insectile Aberration, and here he's going to swing for 3, dropping Michael to 15, unless Michael chooses to Swords it.
He may choose to Swords it with the intent of then plowing the Tarmogoyf, or sorry, dazing the Tarmogoyf, and then starting to Wasteland Dylan's lands.
Yeah, then you start to unleash Wastelands or cast Delver Secrets. I still like casting Delver Secrets, especially on Michael's empty board.
Yeah, I think you can spend one turn doing that. Maybe let Dylan spend a turn cantripping or something and then start attacking his mana.
Yeah, because you could just, next turn you're going to replay the Tundra and cast Delver Secrets, get a little pressure out there, and then start using your Wastelands. So let's see what Dylan decides to do here.
But Michael measures hand again. It just gives him multiple very powerful paths to attack Dylan's 5-card hand.
So Dylan's going to play a Misty Rainforest. He's going to sack it immediately, representing that Tarmogoyf will be entering play, or at least getting cast. So Misty Rainforest is going to find us looks like it's going to find us a Tropical Island, but again, Michael's going to use that Daze to counter the Tarmogoyf, so leaving Dylan with no permanents in play other than just 2 lands.
Yeah. Bunch of cantrips, and now we'll see what Dylan's able to find on his following turn here.
Yeah, so Michael plays a Delver Secrets, replays the Tundra, and plays the Delver Secrets. Dylan draws a Tarmogoyf, a second Tarmogoyf, so he's just going to play it, not even bother cantripping here.
It's a really good draw. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure on Michael to find another removal spell. Or Stoneforge Mystic. A Stoneforge Mystic, I suppose, also fine here.
So Stoneforge Mystic's going to get cast. Let's see if we're going to find a Batterskull. Delver Secrets did not flip this turn. Of course, the Stoneforge was the card that was drawn, so Batterskull is defined there. So Michael still in pretty good shape. He's got Stoneforge, Delver Secrets in play, Wasteland, Tundra, and he's got the second Wasteland in his hand. So.
And I like getting Batterskull here instead of Umazaz Jete. Dylan just has 2 cantrips in hand. It puts a lot of pressure on him to draw Abrupt Decay, maybe find Disfigure off of one of his cantrips, but you have a really good shot of closing out the game right now.
So Dylan draws for the turn. It is a Delver of Secrets, so likely needs to lead with a Ponder here. Try to find an answer to Batterskull.
Yeah, and you see him tapping the Tropical Island, leaving up the Underground Sea. This allows him to draw Disfigure.
So Daze and 2 lands, not exactly what you want there. Of course, he could choose to just keep the land because he has a Brainstorm, but instead he's just going to get a free shuffle here.
No, I think at this point he's on Thoughtseize, Disfigure or bust. I mean, I understand he could do some manipulation, but he just does not have that kind of time. He's in a ton of trouble if this Batterskull gets into play.
So he's going to get the free draw here. Let's see what it is, and it is a Sylvan Library. So not the card he's looking for. Now we might see. Well, he's going to first attack with Tarmogoyf. He hasn't played a land this turn yet, so he can still cast Brainstorm and try to dig for that Thoughtseize, but he looks like he might be trying to lead with Insectile Aberration.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to Brainstorm into black source of mana, and it's just too slim.
So Delver of Secrets still does not flip. Michael reveals a Delver of Secrets of his own, so he has access to Tundra, Wasteland, and he has a second Wasteland in his hand, so he could actually just use double Wasteland to take out all of Dylan's mana, but I think he just wants to get a Batterskull.
Yeah, I think he's happy to Wasteland once, but he really wants to get Batterskull into play this turn.
So getting rid of the black source is always good. Turns off Abrupt Decay. So he's going to remove the Underground Sea from the board and likely just going to pass here, representing Batterskull.
Yeah, Dylan has impactful 1-mana spells that are black. Does not have the same thing for green, so cut off the black.
Yeah, unfortunately for Michael, he does have lightning bolts in his hand, but still no red mana. So this is a theme for him. All 3 games, he's kind of color screwed. Michael reveals a Thoughtseize too little, too late. So really just do everything the wrong time. Cast Golgari Charm right before a True Name Nemesis enters play, and now draws a Thoughtseize after Stoneforge Mystic becomes active.
But Dylan did do a very good job of, he did play towards what he could do.
Yep.
I mean, he dug as hard as he possibly could to try to find an answer to that Batterskull. Just was one card away.
So nightmare scenario for Dylan. Not only does Brainstorm not reveal a second land, but he doesn't even have any colored black source in play. So Batterskull is going to enter play here, and Michael can freely just sacrifice that wasteland, taking out Michael's last remaining land.
Yeah, and at this point, we're really only looking for a plow on the Tarmogoyf or a red source of mana for Bolt on the Insectile Aberration, and that should be all Michael needs to lock this one up.
And he found a Rest in Peace and a Swords of Plowshare and a Misty Rainforest. So he's not going to be able to get all of those cards because, again, this is a Ponder. Maybe probably just gets the Misty Rainforest, wastelands the land, and then passes.
Yeah, with the intent of just plowing and bolting next turn and leaving Dylan with no permanents in play, then potentially casting Rest in Peace to eradicate all memory of Dylan from this game.
Otherwise known as the Flawless Victory.
The flawless victory.
And again, Dylan did Brainstorm lock himself, so there are no lands left on top of his deck for at least 2 turns.
Well, I don't know if it's fair to say that he Brainstorm locked himself.
He didn't lock.
There were extenuating circumstances that led us to this path.
Let's say fate locked himself. So Dylan unable to cast any of the spells in his hand. He does have Insect Aberration and Tarmogoyf in play. Unfortunately, that's really not going to do anything. So now Michael can untap, draw, and he is free to sacrifice Misty Rainforest to find a volcanic island. And again, he can deploy Swords on the Tarmogoyf and Lightning Bolt on the Delver's Secrets, if he so chooses.
Just cleaning it all up.
It's just, and Dylan Donegan doesn't even bother going through the motions. He falls to Michael Majors 1-2, and Michael Majors really impressive game there.
Yeah, no, he executed it well. Again, without colored mana